Good evening. Inspiration Software is the embroidery software line of G7 Solutions and Designs and Machine Embroidery. Our Inspiration Software line includes My Block Piecer, My Quilt Embellisher, Perfect Embroidery Pro, and Perfect Stitch Viewer, and now the new word Art in Stitches. Tonight's webinar features our My Block Piecer, featuring Quilting from Scratch number 2. We have a wonderful team assisting us tonight. There's me, that's Dory, Nancy R., Chris L. I would like to present you to our inspiration consultant, Tamara Evans, who will teach you how to digitize red work and quilting designs in a snap. Again, thank you for joining us and enjoy this, the webinar.
Thank you, Dory. And can you see my screen now?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. Then we will minimize this and bring up my quilt embellisher. I'd like to welcome you all here this evening and thank you for joining us. Tonight we're going to talk about really the main, if not really the only way you can digitize in my quilt embellisher, and that is to use a run stitch. And we can get there many different ways. So let's talk about quilting designs, and with this I'm speaking mostly of single run stitch designs, like we prefer to quilt our quilts with, unless we're doing something special, but the basic way of quilting. I've opened up my quilt embellisher, and we'll just click on Create a New Design. Now, digitizing from scratch a run stitch is very, very simple. We can come up to the top here on the center top and pick up our run stitch, click on the icon, and simply come down and draw lines. If you hold down your Shift key, or your Control key, excuse me, when you are in simple draw mode, it will make those lines a curve. And this is very simple to do. Now, that, of course, is not very pretty, so I'm not a big drawer. Let's get rid of that and bring up a backdrop to look at. And the first one I'll bring up is a fairly simple backdrop. Let's go right here to this friendship blossom and open it. And I want to point out a few things about the artwork. Number one, if you'll notice, if I zoom in here, this is just a JPEG, and it is quite pixelated. However, it is a solid line. And if you're going to use this approach, you need a solid line. It can't be dashed lines, it can't be shades of gray. So I encourage you to check the quality of the artwork by zooming in. As long as you've got a solid black or whatever color line, but it's got to be solid, all in the same shade, not any pixelations and grays, and I'll show you that in a moment, then you're in good shape. So the next thing you would want to do is come over here to the top right corner in the properties box and select the size that you want to make it. Now, generally, quilting designs are quite scalable, but you might as well get it pretty close to the size, if not exactly the size, that you want to use to stitch it out. So in this case, we're going to do an 8-inch block. So I'm going to put 8 in there, and it changes my height automatically. And then when and expands it on the screen, then when I come back, it shows me, I can see the whole thing on the screen, and it is 8 inches square. Now let's go back out of the, oh, and one thing you can do as well is while you're in the backdrop properties, you can scale it right here if you want to. You could rotate it. If I want to put that on point, I could, or if it was upside down, if I scanned my picture upside down, which I have been known to do, I could rotate it right there, either 90 degrees or 180. In this case, it really doesn't matter. I can also make it lighter or darker. So in this case, I want it to be as bold as it can be, because I'm going to come up and select my run stitch. And at this point, I could trace over it and use a combination of a click and holding down my Control key to click to do a curved line. But since I have such nice artwork, I don't need to do that. See, I've created a run stitch right there. I'm going to press undo and get rid of that. And this time, instead of tracing the design by hand, excuse me, I was getting a bug off my screen. I'm going to use my magic wand and select that. Now, the magic wand will read a backdrop. All I have to do is click anywhere on this black line. I don't have to select a starting point or an ending point. I just can click on it, and it will outline that for me fairly quickly. And if I dismiss my background, that's exactly what I got, is an outline. But that's not what I want to do on my quilt, although it could be a cool effect in some cases, but I just want a plain running stitch. So let's click our favorite undo button up here at the top again and bring back up our backdrop by clicking on the picture on the lower left-hand side. And this time, you see I still have my magic wand activated and it's blue. If I hold down my shift key, my wand turns red. Think red work, okay? That will do a single running stitch through the whole design. Instead of outlining it, it follows the path. Now when we dismiss our backdrop, we have a pretty decent drawing there. Now, I can, at that point, go in and change whatever I want to on this design. The first thing I'm going to do is pick up my select tool and select my design, and then come over to my properties box here, and I can change my stitch length. I can change it from a standard to a 2-ply stitch, or a bean stitch, or a motif stitch, or crazy quilting. Let's try a 2-ply and click apply. Now, if it doesn't look like it changed anything, but if we look at it in 3D, I have my parameters set to where it shows me depth when I'm in 3 dimensions. It shows me the depth of thread. And where you do that is up here in your tools box. Go to general options, and when you select view, you want to click here and have this checked, increase double and bean run thickness in 3D view. So it's really going to give you a good idea that all of that is the same weight that's going through that. It's all one, or in this case, a 2-ply stitch or a 3-ply. And you'll see later on how this really helps us to have this selected. So we'll click OK. Now, if I do a bean stitch, which is, I call it like a waltz stitch. You go forward, back, forward, forward, back, forward, forward. If you're doing a 3 repeat, now if we're doing that repeat to be 5 or 7 because we really want to build up that thread, and we may even want to change our stitch length from a 3 to, I don't know, maybe a 3.8, so we have more thread showing, and go back and forth 7 times, that's going to look more like DMC floss stitched on that rather than just embroidery thread or quilting thread, whatever thread you choose to use. So I click apply, and you see how that's changed in look a little bit. It's kind of subtle, but it does change. Now the other option we've got is to select this, and let's go to a motif stitch. Now these can be really fun, such as this one. We'll do these little diamonds all across it and click apply. And the first thing you notice is that those diamonds are way too big. So we go back up here and change our pattern length, and we'll make it small. Now this is the whole pattern, not your stitch length. You see how that's changed over here in the properties view? And let's make that about 3 millimeters, and then click apply. So you can audition different stitches and sizes, and that really kind of gives it a cool look to it. Play around with different things. You also have the option of doing crazy quilting stitches, and unless you have, oh, I don't know, it depends on the stitches you pick. You could do smaller designs or larger designs, you know, they'll show up much better. But let's try this curlicue stitch and see what that looks like. And we'll probably want that to be longer than 3. Let's do that 8 millimeters on the stitch length. That may be too big, but that's why we can audition and try it. And there you go. And that will take a little bit longer to stitch out, and frankly, that just looks kind of bizarre, but in certain cases that could look pretty good. So that is one way to create a redwork design. If we go back through, let me get rid of this, delete, and just to review, I bring back up my backdrop. It's a nice clean backdrop. It's a solid line. We select the run stitch and we select our magic wand. And then we hold down the shift key and we click anywhere on the black. Sorry, I was on the white in that part. Anywhere on the black, and it creates that single run stitch for us. And that is the default, is the single run stitch. Okay. Now, there are some ways that we could go into this and clean it up a little bit. Some of these lines are a little bit jagged. You might want to move them, or here you can adjust the curves on them if you want to. But this is just a real simple, quick way to create a design from a piece of artwork. Now, the next one we'll do will be a little bit different. I'm going to come in here and select a backdrop, and this one is one that I copied from a book, and I scanned it, and it's a lovely design. I think it would be very pretty on any one of a number of quilt blocks. But the problem I have with this design is that it's not a solid line. Okay, so what I did, let's open up another one. I'm going to come back to this one. It's the same design, but this time I used a Sharpie and went over it and scanned it again. Now that's much better, and again we would want to check our size and see what that looks like. And I'm going to select my run stitch and my magic wand. Oops, select it. Hold down my shift key and click anywhere on the solid black line. I want to make sure that's red on my magic wand so that I get a single run stitch. Now dismiss the picture. Now this one really doesn't look near as good, I don't think, as the other one did. So in this case, I'm actually going to take the time to trace over it on the screen. And if you get proficient at that, it really is quicker and a lot more accurate than drawing over it with a Sharpie. So let's go back to the previous design, and I'm going to look at it first and see how I want to draw this. If I look at my sections here, these two bows, parts of the ribbon, I don't know, the loop on the bow, and these two ribbons that come out are really the same as these two and these two and these two. So in my mind, I'm thinking I really only have to trace that one time. So I'm going to pick up my, because then we'll multiply it and put it together. So I'm going to select my run stitch and come over here to my tools, general options, and I'm going to show you a couple of different options on digitizing. We only have one drop-down menu in the whole section on digitizing, and that is how we input our lines. Simple draw, Bezier, or Bezier, I'm not really sure. I never took French, or freehand. Now with freehand, if you have a touch screen on your computer or a tablet with a wand, you can simply trace over that right there. In fact, you wouldn't even have to bring it up as a backdrop on your screen unless you're using the touch screen. You could use a tablet, like a Wacom tablet, like a Wacom Bamboo, something like that, and they're relatively inexpensive, although you can pay a whole lot of money for some of those, and do it freehand. If I was good at freehand, I'd do it freehand, but I'm not. So I'm going to keep it Simple Draw and select OK. Now with Simple Draw, I want to zoom in a little bit on the section I'm going to trace. And it's going to be this part right here. And I'll use a combination. I'll start with a click, and I can do small clicks, but if I hold my control key down, I'm going to get a gentle curve going around here. And when I get to the end, I take it off because I want that to be a point. And then I hold, oops, it's not playing with me right. Okay, point. And then I hold it down, point, and just come back down this side. And right-click to finish it. Now, if I dismiss the backdrop, you'll see I've drawn that, and that looks much better than that point of the bow that was from the one that I did the Sharpie over. So let's keep going, even though it's not perfect. Nobody's going to know that that's off. So let's keep going here, and I want to take, go back to my drawing, and again, click. And you notice I'm not connecting these, so don't worry out there, we're going to get there. And click, and come around and click down to this part. And bear with me, this will just take a couple of minutes. And right-click to finish. And that's a jump stitch that just went across there. Don't worry about it. I'm not really paying much attention to my pathing right now, I'll be perfectly honest with you, because I don't have to. I'm just making sure I trace everything I want traced. And then right-click when I'm done. Then I'm going to come over to this ribbon that sticks out and click along the way. And if you make a mistake, just use the backspace key and you'll take out that one. You don't have to start over. And of course, you can always go back and adjust things when you're finished. It's very forgiving that way. I think I held my control key down there. Let's just click, click. So we get a nice sharp little point there. And come back in and click here. And one more little ribbon to do. We'll do the inside first. So you see there really is no rhyme or reason to the sequence that I'm following. Right click. I don't want to overlap my lines. We'll take care of that in just a minute. Now I've just got this one more area to do here. And bring it on home. And right click. Okay, now let's dismiss the backdrop and see what we have. Now that doesn't look so great with all those jump stitches in there. So the first thing I want to do, let's look at it in 3D. Now you can kind of eliminate a little bit, except this is still a jump stitch right here. So what I will do with this section is get it to where it is one smooth single run. And to do that, I simply select all of these different sections of run stitch, which you can see here easily in the sequence view. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 run stitches. I'm going to come up here and use my favorite icon, the Combine tool, and click on that. And ta-da! It looks perfect. Now, all we have to do is bring back up our backdrop, and I'm going to select this and copy it. I can use my copy icon and then paste it, and we're going to rotate it. Let's see if we can just rotate it 45 degrees. Nope, that's not enough. 90 degrees. Let's see if that's exactly right. Oops, picked up the wrong one. Let's pull that one over here. And that's pretty much right on. Now, those are a little bit different, and I'll see later on if I really care. I could go trace all of them. but I don't really have a mind to do that. I could actually go in and adjust this if I want to by using the points that I have on my shape tool. So I could go in and move these so they're over it so I don't have to retrace the whole thing, which is probably what I would do in reality. And right click to fix that. I'll just move that one in a little. And I think I'm okay with the rest of it actually. So we'll move on to the next thing. We'll go back to our select tool. And now we have two of them. And this time I'm going to combine them again. So it's one thing. And copy it. And then I will paste it. And we'll rotate it 180 degrees. And then move it down here. All right. Now, let's dismiss the backdrop and see what we have. Now that looks pretty good. We're missing one little thing, and that's the circle around the center, and I left that out intentionally because I want it to be a little, I'm going to fudge this. If you need to move something just a little bit, you can select it and use your control keys and the arrow keys on your keyboard, and you can move it just ever so slightly so I don't have that overlap there. Now, I'm going to come up here to my artwork tool and I'm going to pick up my ellipse. And if I hold my control key down, I get a perfect circle. Let's see if that's the right size. And I'm going to fit it in here so that all of those just touch it. Just about. Let's see if I need to fudge this one a little bit more. Nudge it. Actually, easier to do. We will just take our circle and make it a little bit smaller because I think that's the problem. And there you go. Now, the circle is still artwork. You see over here in my sequence view, I'm going to select the artwork and come up here to click on my Convert to Run icon, and then I'm good to go. Except I have three different runs here. Let's select them all by doing a Control A, or I could select the color here, and one more combine, and ta-da, we are done. So at this point, we can go to the slow redraw and see how that will stitch out. And there are a couple of places where it overlaps, but we can go back and fix that if we want to. But it's an awfully nice, quickly done design. If you want to change that to a two-ply, you could certainly do that by coming up here and doing a two-ply and apply that. And make it even bolder. So, Dory, do we have any questions so far?
Yes, we do. Thank you for asking.
Okay. You're welcome.
The center part, round circle,
yes.
can you fill that?
Oh, you certainly could. Now, in a way, you could. If you, we're going to have to break it apart. Okay,
yes,
so we would have ungrouped it. Now you see all the jump stitches. I can select that and make it separate. Let's just change the color on it is the easiest way to do that. And then combine all of the blue again. And I could take the red and make it a stipple. Oh, you know what would be really cute here? Is a circle motif or shape echo of a circle. But, oops, I selected the wrong thing. That's why we have undo, isn't it? Yes. So I'm going to take that and change it here to the circle. And let's put it really, really close together if you really want it filled. Now, we don't actually have fills in this program, but if I put it at a 0.5 millimeter density, that's just like a fill. So if you wanted to do it that way, you certainly could.
Okay, and do you have a recommendation when you're doing red work? of the kind of thread that you would suggest?
Oh, that depends on the look that you want. If I want the red work to really stand out, I'll use a regular 40 weight embroidery thread, which is, what you're used to using with embroidery, or a 40 weight cotton thread that is actually a little bit heavier than 40 weight, and it gives you a real nice look. The other way that I would make it stand out, if I really wanted just that to stand out, is to do it as a bean stitch and make your stitches longer. If you use little tiny stitches, you're pushing that thread down into the fabric and making knots, so it's pulling it way down, and you don't see as much of it. And if you do a bean stitch with a really small stitch length, you're just going to hate it because it'll take forever. And it may break on you because you're trying to put too much thread in one place. Did you drop the set out of your ring, Dory?
No, I did not.
uh, so I like cotton. I like cotton for quilting. But if you want it to be less noticeable, like if I want that to really stand out and I just want to use regular 40 weight thread and a single run stitch, then I might use a much lighter weight thread, like a 60 weight thread, bobbin thread, or something for anything that goes around it so it doesn't compete with it and
All
blend into the
right.
background.
All right. And last but not least, do you have a stabilizer that is the stabilizer of choice?
Well, if I'm doing red work on a quilt sandwich, I don't really worry about stabilizer because unless you've got, this thing right here, I would probably slide a piece of something under there. And frankly, I wouldn't do that through a whole quilt sandwich because I don't want to see that on the back unless I'm matching my bobbin to my thread, in which case that may not bother you. But I generally don't use stabilizer with a quilt sandwich. If I've got a design, and I have done that before, in fact, last month's project of the month was a quilt with some redwork flowers, and then it had a lighter shape echo quilting around them. And I didn't want to see, even though those designs are very nice and they don't have jump stitches, I didn't want to see any knots on the back. So I did the red work with the batting, hooped that, and then I slid my backing over it. So unless I'm doing something that's heavy, then I don't put any stabilizer on it. If I've got a fabric that's kind of flimsy and light, then I would use, or I'm just stitching it on the fabric first, not onto the batting as well, then I like a soft tearaway, like a wash-away tearaway. Every brand makes them, and they are lightweight. You'll notice it's a tearaway, but it kind of leaves a fuzzy edge when you tear it off, and a lot of it goes away when you wash it. And once you start playing with the quilt, messing with it, by the time you've quilted it, you won't even know there's any stabilizer in there. And once you wash it, then, half of it's gone anyway. You're left with a little fuzz underneath the quilt top and next to the batting. And I'm good with that.
Well, the other thing is very often when I see red work, I understand that normally in the past it was done by hand.
Yes.
But is it suggested to do 2 sets of stitches as opposed to 1, or is 1 sufficient if you use a bulkier thread, much like the 40?
I would play with it and see what personally appeals to you. I really think it's you have the poetic license to do it any way you want to. If you want the look of old-fashioned red work, and I've seen this done with embroidery, do a bean stitch with it, and it will build that up and look like floss. It really will. So you could do it that way if that's the look that you want. If you just want a design, a quilting design, then do a single run stitch.
Super, thank you.
You're welcome. All right. You ready to go on?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so there's lots of places where we get designs from. Some of them we already have and we don't know it. For example, in your free designs, and we'll just play with a couple of designs here, and we'll show you how to do it. In your My Quilt Embellisher free designs, we have a lot of flowers in here that are actually really cute. That's really cute. I really like this leaf, and I think this would be a beautiful border. I'll just drag it in here, and the first thing we do is ungroup it because we pulled it in from the library. It's all grouped together. And then when I'm looking at these designs, here's what I do, is I turn on the sequence view. And in the sequence view, you see the list of all the colors. I just start closing the eyeball on those and turning them off until I get to something that I kind of like. And then I may look at it in 3D and go, wow, that's really cool. And if I pulled another one in, let me copy that, and I'm going to, or select it, and we will right-click and copy, and right-click and paste. And now I've got two of them on top of each other. I'm going to scoot it over here, and we can play with how this works. And let's see if I do this and align them. Using my alignment tools up at the top, I could either do this through the center of them or align them at the bottom or at the top or however. That would be one way. I could also, oops, get back here. Center origin always brings it back so I can see it. I could also take this and let's see what happens if we mirror image it. Well, that's not a bad look either. Or we could take this one and mirror image it the other way and spread them out a little bit. But maybe we want them touching, or we want a little bit wider border. In fact, I should bring up my grid here. So I see this is really just 2 inches. So if I really want to make that a good 2-inch border, I could bring this up to the top here, and maybe I want them to touch. I just sit here and play with them until I get it to something I like. And that's kind of neat. And then the next one would fit right in there. And that is 6.6 inches by almost 2 inches. So you could take that measurement, and if you know how many inches the length, the border of your quilt is, you could set that up, and divide it, do a little bit of math, and figure out exactly how long you want this design to be. And it could also have to do with how long your hoop is, so that it'll fit whether you do 1 leaf or 2 leaves, or however you want to do it. You may even set it up to be, something different like this, and let's see, that's 7 inches. Okay, for those of you who have those really big hoops, we will copy this and paste it and move it over here. So maybe on the top side, they're all going this way, and the bottom, they're all going the other way. So that's one way to play with the design. Other designs that you've got, just go in and look at them. If they don't have an outline around here, in fact, let's open up a new one. Let's pull up another design. It's very simple. I think most of these do. Let's see. Well, let's play with just this flower here for a minute. And it does have an outline. First thing I'm going to do is whittle it down till I can see. Now, this is one of the reasons, just so you know, little fun facts to know and tell, that we don't, whenever you go to save a design that you've pulled in from the library, whoops, we don't want to delete that, it asks you, it wants you to do a save as, so that you don't write over it. We don't do automatic saves. Like in Word, when you have a Word document up and it saves it, mine saves it every few seconds. But you can set that length to what you want to. I don't want to automatically save this design because it's going to write over my original design. So that's why we don't do that. I had heard some discussion about that at one point, and I don't remember where. But just a little fun fact to know and tell. If I didn't have this, well, this just isn't a good example. Let's try another one. But that would be a cute design, just the flower. And you know, of course, you could make that an applique if you wanted to. Let's go to my library and let's have, no. Oh, some of these don't have an outline. Okay, so let's pull this in. And maybe I can make a design out of this. I think I certainly could. I like the way that it does the bumps up here at the top of this section. I could always come in with any design and simply select it, right-click, select it, right-click, and say create an outline and do it right on the design edge and say OK. Now, if my thing is touching here, so maybe I don't want to do that. But you could pick out certain designs and do that. So you can create your own fun examples. Let's get this bird here. If I want to do birds, okay, here's my bird. Now you'll notice his outline doesn't go all the way around his body. So I select him, I right-click, and I say create an outline. And I want to make it the same size as the bird, so I just make it 0 distance and click OK. So now I have an outline. If the bird's still grouped, I delete it. Now I've got the outline of a bird that I could use for a design. Another one that I've had a lot of fun with is from the stipple designs, the stipple baby. We have a new baby coming to our family. It's not from me, but I have the stipple baby designs on here down under stipple. And if you go through, a lot of times, especially with appliques, you can pull out some really cute stuff. So I've got this design. Let's look at it in the sequence. I've got green and I've got orange. The green, if I turn off the orange, the green is my top design on there. It stitches over the placement line. So that's my finishing stitch. And I kind of like that because it's got the pockets and the fly on there. If I don't do the green, I've just got pants with the orange. That's kind of boring, but it's workable. So I could select either one of those realistically. And then just make a whole lot of them in a hoop. If I select a hoop size here, pick my largest hoop or the hoop that I want to use. Let's do a 200 by 200 hoop and apply. Then I can take this design, and it's just a standard run stitch. I can tell by looking up here in my properties box, and I could just scatter these all around and copy and paste and move this one over here and rotate it, maybe make it a little bit smaller, and so on and so forth, and just keep going. Now I've actually created one like that. Let's open up a new page that are in my samples. I think we're just in my regular designs. I didn't file it away. Here it is. And this one is with onesies. Now, isn't that cute with all those little onesies? However, I don't want all those jump stitches all over the place. So here's where I need to add a little something to it. Now, I can take my run stitch, again, that up here that I can digitize, and I can come in and create lines. Now, this would be a place where doing a freehand draw would be really easy if you're good at that, but I can just do some control stitches and go around and make my own little kind of thing here and click to join that one, and then maybe this one starts here and comes down to join that one, and then come out from the sleeve here and put it there. And you can make that go all over the place. Now, these are two different colors, and I'm going to end up with jump stitches. If we look at it, not in 3 dimensions, and let's get rid of the grid here, then you're going to see there's jump stitches all over the place. If we look at it in 3D, we just have one, going across the sleeve here. So what we do is select everything. You've got to get in the select mode, out of inputting mode, select everything, and combine. And then you create your own designs. If you're doing a little doggy quilt, you could do that with paws. Look at what you have in your stash of designs and use those as quilting designs. Just simply create an outline around them, or if they have an outline, or if you've got another type of applique design, you can, if it was made in our software, you can break it apart and take that placement line that's a run stitch and duplicate them all over the place. So, Dory, questions about that?
Hi, sorry, I get unplugged
okay.
easily.
That's okay.
Can you show us a duplicate?
Do we have more questions?
Yes, I have one of the gals, Sheila, asked us to repeat the outline steps, and she said please.
Oh, sure.
And
yeah, okay.
Could you also show the audience how to do a duplicate?
A duplicate. Okay, let me do that one first since we're up here.
Thank you.
If you, let's see, you see these are not grouped anymore. They are combined, so we need to break them apart if we're going to duplicate. Now, in this program, we don't have that duplicate function. We only have the copy, paste, and then you can rotate it yourself and reduce it. She probably has Perfect Embroidery Pro, in which case you can duplicate. The duplicate is an option in this menu, and then you would simply click and drag it, and it would drag it out. You could make it any angle you want, and it really does make it go very quickly when you do that. But in this program, we don't have that function, and I think that would be a great thing to put on the request for updates, because that would certainly make this job a lot easier. Another thing that you can do if you have Perfect Embroidery Pro is use the scatter template. And you can set your hoop size or the size that you want your finished design to be. And you can scatter it. So it gives you all different sizes and rotates them and does all of that and get the same effect that you see like right here. Okay, so the other question was on outlining. Okay, yes. Let's bring up another design. And let's go to, what else is in my samples here? Oh, let's do this butterfly. It's very pretty. I do like the butterflies. Now, it doesn't have an outline around it. If I look at the sequence view and start clicking, and sometimes you're kind of surprised because there might be an outline there that you don't know is there. Ooh, the wings are kind of there. So if I wanted to keep those, I could. You could also possibly, depending on the design, see there's no outline there. I could, I'm going to show all just to turn them all back on real quick. To outline it, I'm going to select the design. It's still grouped because I brought it in from the library. Right click and say create outline. Now, in here it asks me how many repeats. I just want one. It asks me the distance. And I want it to be 0. I want it to be right on the outside of that. Now, you of course can change that based on whatever design you're doing if you want it larger. And then I click OK. Now, what this actually does is it makes artwork. So at this point, for that to be stitches, you really would have to select it and come up here and convert it to a run stitch. Okay, so now it stitches. And let's go back and turn off some of these other lines that we have. Oh, I'm going to leave those on because I kind of like that. Oh, let's ungroup our design before we go any further. Okay, and collapse everything so we don't see the individual pieces of it. So I've got, turn that off, turn that off. What did I turn off there? Not much. Yeah, I did. Okay, and that, and that. And then I can decide, I don't want the body there, so let's look at the stitches here. There's that satin. I'm going to just use my keyboard delete, and I'm going to use my, let's see, oh, that's the next one, satin, and I'm going to delete that one. And then I have some run stitches. In fact, I may just delete that whole thing. Oh, manual, move that. And you can play by just deleting certain things in there and see what it is that you want to get rid of. I want to get rid of, well, I'll just get rid of the body. So you can get rid of as much or as little of it as you want to. Go in and do some editing, and you can do all of that in this program. If you just want an outline like that, you got it.
Ooh,
So
that's very pretty.
yeah, that would be very pretty scattered around with, you know, some little stitches through it that look like it's flying or something. Or, you know,
I would
just,
love that as a quilt embellishment design on top of a block.
oh, that would be very pretty. And of course, you can always outline any of your designs to get that quilting look too. A couple of other things that you can do that are very simple in creating run stitches. Let's open up a block. Let's pick a block from our block library. And I'm going to do a basic block. In fact, I'm going to do, no, that's too much. Let's just do a basic block. Basic, and let's do this butterfly block since we're on a roll here with butterflies. Now, this is all artwork. And I'm going to select, well, first of all, I'm going to change this light color to a darker color because you're not going to be able to see that. So we'll make it, I kind of like, ooh, that's pretty. We'll make it that color. Now, if I select all of these blocks and I come in and I convert them to, or not blocks, but patches, excuse my misuse of terminology, and convert them all to a run stitch, here's what we have. Doesn't look like much, right? But each one of them outline that block. And if I turn on my backdrop, whenever you bring in artwork, it automatically brings in a backdrop. You just have to turn it on. So we can see what this will look like on our stitches. I'm going to select, let's expand these. I've got 4 run stitches that go around each of the 4 white colored blocks and 2 that go around each of the triangles. Let's do the triangles first. So I'm going to select this run stitch and go to my shape tool. Now, the shape tool allows me to add nodes. Right now I just have 3, one here, and one here. And as we learned from Catherine a while back, if you right click and click edit and say you just want the outlines, it will do that. So I just see my nodes. I don't want to play with the entry exit points right now. So now I think I do want to turn my grid back on because I'll do this somewhat evenly. I'm going to select the center of this line, right click, add a point, and just pull that up here about halfway. Right here in the center of this, I'm going to add a point, and we'll put that up about right here. And right click, add a point, and we'll pull that up in the center here. Now, let's look at it in 3D. I have that kind of a look going. I can do the same thing here. Add a point and pull it in. So you can get away from stitch in the ditch, but if you've got really pretty fabric and you don't want to detract from the fabric because of the quilting, but you really want to do something besides stitch in the ditch, this is an easy way to do it. Or those times when you're just, I don't know, oops, select. Oh, you know what? I pulled in the square points on that. Yeah, you got to watch your color here. Okay, so add a point. Yeah, that's what I did because those should have been purple. But you get the idea. You can just select it. Okay, where are you? In fact, I should just hide the blue. Then it's easy to get in and select. Oh no, the pink's right. The blue's on the other. Never mind. Okay, and select my point, add it, and drag it in a bit. And you could even get kind of crazy with this, and my mouse is giving me fits. Add a point. I could pull it way over here. I could pull this one down to here or here. We can make some really pretty stuff. And select a point here and move that one here, as long as I stay in my block. And you could get some interesting designs going. So just by converting a block to a run stitch and then selecting the stitches. So we'll turn back on our purples, and you could even take and select all of those and make them smaller. Oh, it's looking at, so we do it individually. Make them smaller. We'll make them 3.5 inches and apply. So if you want to do a little stitch in the ditch kind of thing. Now that design is interesting because it actually had the wide under the bit. Oh, no it didn't. So see, that's smaller. Anyway, you get the idea. So, any other questions, Dory?
Yes, we had one last one from Chris. And Chris wanted to know if you can show her just one more time how to use the magic wand like you did. She was just blown away with that.
In the very beginning?
Yeah. Okay. Bring that back and show us how to do that wand one more time, please.
All right, we can do that. Let me select a design. And, oh, I do have another one to show you. We'll do this one this time. You've got to make sure that it is a solid line, okay? Check the size of your block. If that's the size you want, then go for it. Then you simply click on your run stitch up here. These are your digitizing stitches. You can digitize artwork and a run stitch from scratch. Once you get it to one of those forms, you can convert it to almost anything else, which are all of these stitches over here that are grayed out right now. So we'll select our run stitch. Then that turns on our magic wand only because we have a backdrop. Then we select the magic wand. Right now it is blue, so we want to hold the shift key down so it's red and click anywhere on the black, like right there. And that was quick. Let's dismiss our backdrop, and there you go. Now, it's very easy to go in and adjust some of these where the point's not really hard, but that's because it was a solid line. You're walking a fine line, pun intended, between if you have too thick of a line, sorry, or too thin of a line. If it's too thin, it would be pixelated. If it's too thick, then you get some wonkiness in there like this. But that's easy enough to select your design and select it and your shape tool and go back in and move that node and adjust it. And Catherine has some great, in PEP, does some great talking about the type of nodes and what they do. So I would encourage you, if I could wish I permission to play, I think is the webinar. But I learned a whole lot from that one myself. So you can go back and clean those up a little bit where they're not quite so sharp. And change the shape of them. Now, one other way that you can, real quick while we still have some time, to get designs is to import them. If you have other artwork programs or quilting programs that have designs in them, you could possibly import them from there. This is one. We'll go to File and Import Artwork. And these come in. Let's see, here's a feather circle that I exported from another program, and I'll open it up. Now you notice my screen just went really bizarre. I exported it from the other program in a very high quality artwork, 600 DPI, and so when I open it up here, This design is almost 90 inches square, which is way too big for any of my hoops, Dory. I don't know about yours, but we need to resize that down to a reasonable size, and then we'll just center origin. And now I have a lovely feathered design. But if we look over here, it's artwork. And all of these are separate pieces of artwork. They're quite lovely. All I have to do with this is select the entire thing and click on Convert to Run. And that, my dear, is the easiest of all.
That is excellent.
Isn't that awesome?
Yes.
And quite fun.
All right. Well, I thank you very much.
All right. Any other questions we have?
Nope, that's about it for tonight.
All right, very good. Now I will point out to you as well, once you convert it to a run, remember you can convert it to anything else. If you want to go and make all these little things stipples, that would be ugly, so don't do that. You could make them anything you want. You could outline them and fill them. Get creative. That's what this is all about. And the wonderful thing about it is you don't have to stitch anything. Try it out. Experiment on the screen. You can't hurt anything. And, you know, go play, have fun, and make it your own. Thank you, Dory, and thank you, Chris and Nancy, for your help tonight. And I appreciate everybody coming.
Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Good night.